Good morning and welcome to The Unbreakable Soul. I'm your host, Crystal Rome, and today we have such an amazing guest on, and I'm so excited to introduce you. But first, I'm going to talk about the series just a little bit. It really was a prompting on my heart to do this series because I wanted to share with the world people's real stories, trauma, things they've been through, hardships, and how they were able to overcome and live in freedom. And I think a lot of people feel trapped. They feel like that they can't find that freedom. Mm-hmm. So this is so exciting because I have you today. You're an expert, and we're going to have many experts on our show sharing on how we can have breakthrough in our lives. And so I want to introduce Annita D'Amico here with you today. She has a doctorate in psychology. She has written several women's devotional books, lived in Italy for several years, has worked with incarcerated children. Your story, it's just an amazing story that you have. And she also wrote this book, The Culturally Wired Brain, which is so amazing to me because I never really researched about the brain and what all it does and how it can help us and how we can reprogram our thoughts and not live the same life that we've continued to live in the past. So I am really excited to hear more about this. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to getting into this whole field.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. And we have talked so often about doing this and sharing some of the information. And we both are so excited about what happens when people experience different things and different challenges. And I started out in this field just straight out of college, ended up working with incarcerated youth, actually went on for further education because I saw all the needs they had and all my inadequacies. And I was like, help, I need more education. I need more knowledge. I need more training. So I continued to go on to try to really equip myself more in understanding how the experiences of these young women had influenced how then they were making tremendous choices in their lives and how to help them reintegrate back into the world through some really tragic situations. But my favorite thing to talk about is the brain. Our brains are so amazing. And I get so excited, and that's a very weird thing to some people, that the brain would be that exciting. But we really do not realize how amazing our brains are, that there are millions and billions of connections inside our head. It really exceeds our solar system. And because of that, we have tremendous potential. Now, our brains, one thing that is fascinating that gets us into trouble is that our brain is biased for survival and it's biased for negativity. And you can see how that goes together, because if you sense something dangerous, your brain is going to set off an alarm and allow you to respond to that to try to protect you. But if you have enough of those alarms, you begin to get trapped in that cycle of responding over and over again. And you really get trauma fatigue, so that your body now is so exhausted that it stops going to the frontal lobe to say, no, we got this. We can handle this.
So it's kind of like a survival mode. All the stress, fear, anxiety, it can lock your mind in this survival mode. It's like the same pattern over and over. That's why people stay in abusive relationships, right? A lot of times. And so many people say, well, why don't they just leave? It's not that easy. There's more to it.
You're exactly right, because we do get stuck in that survival mode. And you can see now there has been an increase in even our young people who have not had the opportunity to do more relationships and conversations, some because of technology. So they now are better at responding and reacting rather than actually going to a critical thinking piece. But we have a hormone called oxytocin, which is an incredible piece. It's a piece that is excreted when we have a baby, when we fall in love. The scientists call it the cuddle hormone. But it's a beautiful.
My son would love that. Cuddles. He loves cuddles.
It's a beautiful piece, but that gets activated also in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And now that abusive piece that activates that hormone actually allows the body to lock in with a fear piece for the attachment and attraction to that other individual. So now that beautiful piece that helps us love each other and attach to each other is now trapped in a cycle. It actually starts a perfect storm in the head. Now the emotions become so confused because they're not safe, but they're attached, that it begins to cycle around and around, and the memory center of the brain begins to not know where to attach the memories and how to explain them.
Wow, that is so amazing. And this is all happening and people aren't even aware of it. I mean, you're just living your life and you're responding out of habit or what people told you, your identity, like what you think you are because of what was said to you, or culturally, the way that we grew up. I mean, it's really amazing. So how can we, I mean, yeah, it's like anchors. The trauma sets anchors, but how do we get rid of these toxic thoughts and patterns that we have?
Before we jump right into that, Crystal, one thing
I'm like, I want to know.
I know. I think in all you're getting, get an understanding. The wisest man in the world said that, because getting an understanding is kind of like putting legs onto a table. A table is fine, but it is useless until you put the legs under us. When we get an understanding, we can begin to walk in a power, really an authority even over our own lives in a whole different manner. But
that's
think
what
about,
I want.
Yes, think about first our immune systems, which that fascinates me. Our immune system is only good when we catch something. Everything we catch now instructs the immune system. So the immune system is now guided and directed into how to fight that the next time. The reason we'll catch cold after cold is, just imagine the molecular basis for a cold germ. Say it's ABC. Once you catch ABC, your immune system has that pattern and it totally fixes everything to fight it. It builds up those B cells and all those T cells, and it's perfectly equipped. Okay, but the tricky thing about the cold virus is now the next time it approaches you, it is maybe ADF. So now the immune system sees a new type of germ, and so it has to now respond to that one.
Right.
But relationships do a similar thing in teaching and guiding how we do relationships. Each relationship, little kids on the playground are being taught how to relationship.
Right.
So that's why some children will end up being bullied or being the brunt of other kids' jokes and humor because they've learned they're not as strong, or they've learned they can't fight as well, or they don't respond as well. So some of that happens in an abusive relationship. In the beginning, there's that beautiful attachment. Most people who begin in an abusive relationship say, but I love that person so much. I was more in love with them than I've ever been with anyone in my life. Slowly, little pieces started coming in, like that virus with the immune system. And it began to teach the brain and the emotions and the memory system that you don't really understand how to do this relationship. I am in control. I am going to help you manage this. You're not worthy. You're not. So all of a sudden, the tutoring, teaching piece begins to happen with the relationship.
Yeah, I can speak from experience in my own life. Yeah, there's times where it just, in my past, when I was in abusive relationships with boyfriends and things, just getting in that vicious cycle, and it's like these little voices in your head that are telling you, no, you're not good enough, or no, because of whatever somebody else is saying to you. But it's so powerful because it embeds so deep.
Yes.
And really, unless we learn something new, it's really hard you'll just stay in that cycle.
Yes, because that cycle keeps reinforcing the cycle.
The cycle, right.
And once, I think people who've never been in a situation like that have so much trouble understanding someone who has been victimized, is that it's kind of unplugging something you've been plugged into, and now you feel the lack. So the
Right.
lack is so intense when that person steps away from that abusive partner,
Right.
that they feel so empty and so alone and so vulnerable that they have to jump back into a relationship that is almost exactly the same.
Right.
And that familiarity now feeds that same
Feeds it again.
storm inside the head.
Yeah, and really empowering and learning a new identity, learning new things, seeing yourself in a whole different way, and making different decisions and knowing what those are.
And that is now some of the answer, because our brain, as I said in the very beginning, we have tons of neurons. We have tons of connections. Every neuron has from 10 to 10,000 even possible connections. So
It's
we've been
amazing.
divinely designed to be able to repair our heads and rewire.
And that's good news, everybody.
It's a very good news. I recently we had an entertainment system set up in our downstairs, and the engineer, the whatever guy, he had all these extra buttons, and I'm like, I understand this button, but I don't understand all these others. And he said, well, that's when you want to add on or refresh, or and that's what we have in our heads. We have extra neurons and extra sites for healing, because the brain is also designed for healing. It's called neuroplasticity, which means that the brain rewires, reworks, restructures with new experiences, new feelings, new reactions, so that really it can grow. And this is a divine design.
Yeah.
Now, words are the ones that usually begin to tear us down or to hurt. Words are also what now builds up and what restructures. The brain is waiting to know what we believe. And if we believe that we are enabled to be able to walk out of this, and we find relationships that begin to nourish us, which is so important.
Very important.
Then the brain begins to heal itself. And it actually can be now wiser to other situations that are manipulative or harmful. Right. We have learned so much from the work with the PTSD and all the different things with warriors coming back with issues going on. Because there was some time when we believed that memory that would continue with that situation to cycle around and around and around. And it gets stuck in the limbic system of the brain, the center of the brain, so that we don't even shift it to the logical portion. Right. And so getting some freedom from that cycling through a positive relationship and positive words, healing words. Yes. That now you can begin to go back to the logic and say, I do not have to stay here.
Right. Yeah, that is exactly what I was just going to say. So even in my life, there was a certain relationship where I had hit rock bottom, and the person I was in a relationship had thrown something across the room, very precious to me, a photo of my dad, who I lost when I was 20 years old. But the glass shattered all over the floor, and it was my most prized possession was a photo of my dad, And I just kind of had just an anxiety attack at that moment, and, fell to the ground, and basically I was crying out to God for help. And I was saying, you have to help me. I can't stay here. And I heard him say, I'm here with you, and I'm going to walk with you out of this, but you have to stand up on your own 2 feet. And it was just huge because I had to make the choice to do that. And at that time I started going to some support groups in my church and different things, and reading different books, Captivating, Boundaries, Love is a Choice. These were all books that really helped me to open my eyes to see things new. Like you're saying, new words, new relationships, filling yourself up, getting the strength to do some of it on your own, but God is with you. But it's exactly what you just said. I lived it.
And that, you see, the healing process, because you abusers, and this can happen in nations where you have a whole people groups who are under the thumb of someone who has an abusive personality, abusive political way of running a country and everything. Yes. But you began to redefine Your abuser defined you, and you
Right,
begin to
exactly.
redefine yourself.
Who are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. There's a man who wrote a book. This was Search for Meaning. And he had been in a concentration camp. And he actually lost his wife and his child there. But he said he watched as people who could walk through those horrendous conditions and those who believed their life had meaning were able to survive.
Wow.
And that's a powerful piece when we begin to believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are God's design. He gave us everything we need through his power for life and godliness, that we have a purpose to even be ministering with one another, even if we come with some scars and some bumps and bruises. It's a powerful place of now walking out a very difficult situation.
Right. We can walk out our lives in productivity and relationally with other people, and our soul that God created us in us, right? Like we can rebuild, and we have the ability to think and do as God would want us to, like a healthy relationship or healthy lives.
And I love, everyone has a story. I love to hear people's stories, but it's not just a story that stays in a closet. Everyone needs to share their story because somebody's waiting to hear it. Somebody's waiting to be empowered by it. Somebody's waiting to be healed by it. I get so excited when I find people who are like, no one wants to hear my story. I'm like, oh, yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yes, and need it.
Yes, I'm so excited about this series because I have a lineup of some incredible people who went through so much, and it's almost like a movie. You would not believe their stories, but they were able to come out of it. So so I can't wait for people to be encouraged and you really raise up. And if they know anyone that is struggling too, to share this with them, because it's a good tool to help. So we have to, see new things, hear new things, and things that can empower and lift us up, and so we can live in freedom, because we all deserve that.
Yes, I'm excited. And the word that kept coming in my head as I was thinking about this is, we are a renewable resource, and our minds are renewable. It's built into us.
And that's amazing. It's in our DNA.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's great. One thing I wanted to bring out real quick, though, is the scripture that we talked about that was really cool. From the Apostle Paul, you were talking about that. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that was Romans 12:2, sorry. But that's so powerful, but it is the renewing of our mind. It is possible. Like, you don't have to stay there in that dark place. You don't have to keep reliving your past over and over. Like, we can change that.
I think I love Play-Doh, my grandchildren, my kids. Everybody loves Play-Doh.
Yes, but it dries out.
It does, which is a great example of when we've allowed ourselves to be conformed to something. Yeah. When it's been pressed against something so long that it takes the shape of it, like being conformed to the world. Yeah. Then left there, it dries out and becomes hardened. But God made our minds in such a way that through his word, there's a renewal, revival, and a healing that happens. And there are places people look back and they say, but I can never change that. And that's exactly right. We can't change the past, but we can change the reality of the past, which means now we know that it might have been designed to destroy us, but it can't destroy us. Right. And that we can come out even stronger because of it as we share with others and we allow the power of how we're designed to be renewed.
I love it. And, you brought out a good point that I just thought of, which would be a whole nother show. But basically that we are not defined by others either. Right. We can't just want, people please all the time. And that's what makes you who you are. Because, like you said, it's not about everyone else around us, like trying to please them.
I have heard people say that they believe many times it's their faults that have gotten them where they're at. And I disagree with that. I think our gifts get us into more trouble than our faults ever do. And that's a piece that can be used against us. Gentle, loving, tender, very sensitive people are often the ones who will be picked at or charged most with abuse. People see their gifts and they know they're tender and loving and soft and forgiving. And so that gift, which is a gift, a powerful gift,
Yes.
is the one that then is used against them. Then they believe their gift is no longer useful.
Right. Right.
In fact, it was one of the most amazing things about them.
See, that's so true. Because it can be used against them, yeah. And their beautiful gift is squandered, basically.
Yes. And so it's taking back the gift, allowing it to be shown forth and allowing it to grow.
So then people get scared to love fully.
Yes.
And truly, which is sad because we were meant to love fully.
And I think love is dangerous because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And because it's so powerful is why we have to do it.
Right. That's so good. I think that's a good way to close our show today. So let's love each other and let's keep on learning and growing and find that freedom together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.